Libreville, the capital of Gabon, takes center stage. It's difficult to imagine both the seafront and the Liberation Boulevard completely deserted and without a car in sight. It's going to be like this all weekend. There'll be 5 races on the program over 2 days, 10,000 participants in total. The showpiece, of course, being the marathon. What makes it special? The climate. Here is tropical and very humid. The course is not one of the fastest. After the start, there's a major obstacle, a climb up to the roundabout of Democracy. The runners will then rejoin the seafront for the 10K marker before heading towards the airport and then over to the Stade de l'Amitié. One lap around the stadium indicates the halfway stage. The race then weaves down to the Embassy District. When the runners reach the Old State High School, they'll hit the 35K mark. Then it's time to follow the seafront all the way to the official grandstand, finishing with a final straight that never seems to end. So here we are, and one could say that the Gabonese people have turned out in force for this first ever marathon here in Libreville. 4,000 runners are at the starting line. Not all of them are local either. There are Ethiopians, Kenyans, and a whole range of long-distance specialists in both the men and women's categories, all shoulder to shoulder, ready to cover 42.195 kilometers of Gabonese road. The protagonists look focused, and the locals are creating the atmosphere. The starting area is ready to burst, as are the heavy clouds which are hanging over Libreville this morning. Amongst the fans, someone special appears. Well, it's the president of Gabon, Ali Bongo Ondimba. He's been ever present throughout the weekend and ready to get the early morning show on the road. It's 8:30 on the dot, and they're off. The pace is very quick. Certain Gabonese runners have blasted off at the front. Others are keen to stop and shake the president's hand, who looks at ease amongst the masses, at ease and content. One has to say that as far as gathering the locals for this event, it's already been a great victory before the race is even finished. It's an incredible sight, just seeing all of the runners passing the starting line. The long cortege soon sweeps past the presidential palace along the seafront. 3 minutes into the race, and there are still some runners just going past the starting line. Meanwhile, at the front, the professionals are taking control. The audacious Gabonese front runners have all been swallowed up. To race a marathon, you have to apply a specific tactical game plan. You shouldn't start too quickly, and those who have been buoyed by the general buzz of the event will not go very far. They've already tapered off as they approach the triumphal boulevard.
Ouais, c'est bien ça.
The elite, those who are old hands at this, have a certain allure, like the Kenyan wearing bib number 20. Lucas Kanda, he's the pacemaker, working for the other runners. His task is to keep check on the time and get his rhythm synchronized. His colleagues can count on him and his experience. Kanda has already won 3 marathons in Rome, Valencia and Nice, and all in times around the 2 hours and 8 minute mark. And then there is the runner in the blue bib number 12, Philippe Longat. The 22-year-old is a newcomer. This is his first ever marathon. For the moment, he appears to be hanging in the shadows of Kanda and under the watchful eye of his training partner, Peter Kruwai, which must be reassuring. In any case, this group are starting to build a gap. One has to mention that the runners are at a key section of the course, as IAAF race official Jean-Marie Graal explains.
There's
only one major obstacle situated between the 3rd and the 5th kilometre. It's a serious climb, which is more so at the 6 kilometre mark, in fact, which takes you from the seafront up to the highest point, which is around 50 metres above sea level. So you have a sharp 45-metre hill which you need to tackle over a short distance, which is difficult, especially as it's so early on in the race. An obstacle which doesn't seem to bother the more experienced. After the climb, the runners arrive at the Democracy roundabout, but you have to get there first by heading up the boulevard. A boulevard which has been swamped by runners on both sides. Luckily, it's wide enough the more ambitious runners can use its width to try and gain a few extra places. Back to the front of the race, where the leaders have made plenty of ground. They're already dropping back down through the working class districts behind the prison. Our debutant is dropping back, but luckily he can rely on the wise words of his compatriot, Michael Kiprop.
Voilà, attention, t'es en train de te faire rattraper.
It is my first marathon. Now I am debut. But at first I was last year I was pacing in London, up to 32 kilometers. So where I see that I can make it to run or to finish a marathon. That is why I decided to come Gabon to test myself if I can run a good time. So I've seen, we can see on Sunday, but the place is good. But it can depend with the weather now. Because maybe where I was training in my home is maybe a little very cold. So when you see here, it's warm. So we can try our best.
The heat here is one of the biggest concerns. The leading group have just passed the first refreshment stand in the Louis quartier before returning to the seafront. That means they've already raced 7.5 kilometers in 23 minutes. For the others, it's time to get some water at the Peace roundabout at the 5-kilometer mark. Now, this race is being recognised by the International Federation, so official rules must be respected. Water stands every 5 kilometres and wet sponges available each 2.5 kilometres. Because of these exceptionally hot conditions, water has been made available at the wet sponge distribution points too. The organisers are keen to avoid any form of dehydration. You can already see suffering on some of the faces. The amateurs, seeking to satisfy their own personal exploits, are beginning to understand the degree of difficulty. The first signs of lapping are visible now as the long-distance runners run past those who are in the 10-kilometre race. The latter only have to go down the triumphal boulevard. Some of them are surprised. Normally the runners go up one side of the road and the 10K runners down the other. But as you can see, they are mingling. Luckily, the boulevard is wide enough to cater for all, and no incident occurs. As for the sky, well, the heavens are about to open up. Here, when it rains, it pours. It's no joke. It can be kind of refreshing, but it's often violent. And so it happens, the rain has arrived, and as predicted, it's not a light shower. The locals are accustomed to these dramatic changes, and you can see they all have their own little rituals. Africa has its music and entrancing rhythms, which is a great motivator for many, and it's the perfect remedy to steal the attention away from the deluge here in the Gabonese capital. All these runners are showing great courage, and the public are recognizing their efforts, as you can see.
Yeah, I think this is great. Just, there's so many good runners in this city and in this country that this is just the right event for where this country's going right now. It's great.
On the seafront, Gabon's own Mark Titus Nzogi, wearing the red vest, runs past the masses as he reaches the finish line in the 10-kilometre race. He reeled in his compatriot, Prince Mbine, who thought he was clear until he saw the final dash from Nzogi. He then realised there was nothing he could do. So that's exactly what happened. Mark Titus Nzogi crosses the line first, finishing in 34 minutes and 29 seconds. The finish is the same for everyone. This is where it will happen, opposite the grandstand, where 3,000 children are watching their first ever official race. All age categories have their own races, whether it's 1, 2 or 3 kilometres, with children aged between 6 and 17 years old. All of the children can race on the same roads as the professionals, and they also get their times registered, just like the pros. These races for the children have been a great success. The Gabonese schools have encouraged all of the youngsters to get involved with this event. And they all seem to fit in so well. Even if they do prefer football in general, they showed great enthusiasm, whatever their age, and gave their all to push their own limits and earn their first finisher medal, just like real marathon champions. The champions continue their domination at the front. Luca Kanda still leads the way for the elite runners at a rhythm of 3 minutes 15 per kilometre, which is around 18 to 19 kilometres per hour. We now know how they've managed to break from their amateurs. They're now arriving at the Stade de l'Amitié, or Friends Stadium, which was built 2 years ago for the Africa Cup of Nations. We're at the halfway stage of the marathon now, in the most less urban section of the Gabon Marathon. First to finish their lap around the stadium is the Ethiopian Solomon Mola, who was third in the Beijing Marathon last year, and the Kenyan Peter Kirui. Both have similar personal best times, with Mola running 2 hours 8.46 seconds and 2 hours 8.56 for Kirui. Serious gaps are starting to form. At the seafront, it's also time to complete 21 kilometres, as some of the half-marathon runners are nearing completion. There's no mass finish in this one. First to arrive on his own is Daniel Obongui. The Gabonese runner stopped the clock in 1 hour, 10 minutes and 4 seconds. During that time, the first female runner has already passed through the stadium. Kenya's Milka Jerotich has been running solo since the 6th kilometre mark. Now, she won the Warsaw Marathon in April this year with a personal best of 2 hours 28.23 seconds. There's no doubt that she has been inspired by the exploits of her legendary compatriot Tegla Lerupe, who was the first African athlete to have won the New York Marathon in 1994 and has won 5 of the biggest races on the world circuit. This great female marathonian is actually present in Libreville. She hasn't come to race the showpiece, but she did compete alongside her fellow Africans in a special 5-kilometre run called La Gabonaise, which took place yesterday. I'm from Gabon, I'm young. When I see the Kenyans and the Ethiopians on television, I want to run just like them. I'll try my luck and we'll see. I'm asthmatic and I want to run to win my battle against this problem and also to test my capacity and stamina. I hope I'll win and beat the First Lady. We want the First Lady to organise more of these events because we want to run. We need to do sport. Look, I need to lose weight. It wasn't an official race for positions as such, just a 5-kilometre run to have fun, to enjoy the atmosphere, and all for 2 good causes. It didn't really matter what was behind the motivation. All Gabonese runners should be on the streets in Libreville on Saturday. Around 2,000 runners laced up and took up the call by Gabon's First Lady and her foundation, the race to defend women's rights and combined with the battle against AIDS. Sylvia Bongo Ondimba and Tegla Lerupe are both fighting for the same cause.
My special message is also to ask the women to support our First Lady, who is engaged in such a noble event, that tomorrow there will be other many events, not only in one place, but in different locations. And also sports is for health. And also sports can bring even the widows that they think that they are being left behind, that when they are together with sports, they can engage in a noble events. And also sports also educating the young ones and together with the elders.
Tegla Lerupe is an